What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo with Mike Golic Jr. That is me. With me, as always, super producer Brandon Newman, and for today, my father, Mike Golic Sr., co-host of Golic and Smetty. What's going on, Dad? How you doing?
Couldn't get anybody else today, huh? Is that how it works?
Nope.
So I called it this morning. And your mother will back me up, okay? So, Brandon, Mike texts me. I've had this stiff neck for a long time, right? For about a week, where luckily through the NFL, they have this place, Exos, where actually Mike and Jake trained for their pro day, where former NFL players can go and get rehab and stuff and work out. So, I literally could not turn my head. So sore. I was sleeping in another part of the house and everything. So I'm getting this treatment. And I'm feeling better. So I got the treatment, and Mike knows about this. So Mike texts me this morning, and he says, "How's the neck today, Dad?" I'm like, "It's good. It's a lot better, Mike. Thanks." And after I got that text, I said right to your mother, I said, "Mike is going to ask me to do the pod later." I said, because he was just trying to feel me out to see if I said, "Oh, it's still killing me. I can't turn my head." And Mike, your mother was like, "No." I said, "Watch." And however later was, you text me, "You available for the pod?" I just showed your mother. She's like, "Oh my God." I said, "Yeah." I said, my firstborn was feeling me out to try and take advantage of my ass with a bad neck and all.
It's 100% spot on. It's 100% accurate.
Listen, he had the best intentions, though. He definitely had the best intentions, though. Because he told me, he was like, I think I might reach out to my dad for Friday's episode. And I think he didn't say it, but I knew he had your stiff neck in mind. Now that you're good.
Don't try and cover for him, Brandon, okay? I saw right through it.
It's 100% what I was doing. Hey, listen, the Stugatz is strong in me, all right?
So where was the line of what I'd said of how bad it would have been for you to not follow up with the, "Hey, you want to come on the pod" text?
If you had said it's still, like, if it had not improved at all, because when I FaceTime you and my mom yesterday when that was going on, you literally turned yourself like Batman, like you were wearing the Batman neck suit. Yeah. And so if it was in that spot, I wasn't going to put you through the coal mining rigors of podcasting.
So if I'd have said, "You asked my neck's better, it's about 2% better," would that have been enough for you to ask me to come on the pod?
Probably.
Yeah.
We just needed to see it trending in the right direction. That's all it is. No setbacks.
All you needed, if you would have heard, it would have had to be, "Mike, it's worse today than yesterday," then you probably wouldn't have bothered me.
Listen, it's playoff football time, all right? So if you're trending in the right direction, we're getting your ass on the field.
You're right. All right. You know what? I can't argue with that. Stick a needle in it. Let's go.
This is a sensitive topic, but they was about to roll your ass out there like Tua against the Bengals. It's like, hey, we didn't see nothing. You look good. Nope. Let's see if you can complete these passes.
You just go play, man. You just go play. Everything else be damned, right?
Oh, my God. Yeah, so that is exactly 100% of the booking process that went on for this episode here. And it'll be a great episode because in addition to pulling my father back onto the field before he is fully healed, like a power-hungry college football team, I also made him do a list because everyone had been doing the most talked about. I think the Golden Globes were last night. I didn't watch a second of it. But everyone's been doing their most talked about TV shows. We've said off and on here, nobody watches or consumes more television than my dad. So we will have Mike Golic Sr.'s top 5 shows that he watched in 2022 that'll come up on this, as well as look ahead to some of the games this weekend. Dad's going to be on the call for the Sunday nighter between the Bengals and the Ravens, which trending in a very poor direction right now. But Brandon, since we did have my dad on this podcast here, and we can get hashtag dad to the bone, I did want to ask and see where you were at, because a while back you had brought up the possibility of you and your wife starting potty training for your oldest son. Yes. And I just didn't know where we were at in that process, and if there's anything that you wanted to bounce off Dad here while you had him as a 3-time potty training champion, at least, more or less.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We will get to my situation, but I am interested in how you and ND Mom handled potty training. Like, what advice came in from what sources? Because we have the internet. Like, we don't even have to ask Jeeves. So, like, where did the information come for you guys?
just from our parents. We get advice on what they did, and you just kind of go with it. You kind of go with your gut. You can read all the books in the world. For young parents today, it's tough because there's almost too much information out there, too much for you to look at. When obviously you want safety for your children, but a lot of it is you talk to your parents about kind of what they did, and then you go with your gut. It was so long ago that I potty trained. I don't remember the technique. I just remembered what you have to be. You have to be patient and consistent. You have to continually do the same thing till they get the message. If you let it slide, then you fall back a little bit. You just have to do it over and over. It's kind of like reps, and learning your technique over and over and over and over again until that's exactly what your kid is used to, and it becomes second nature.
I can feel your son, your firstborn, say you fall back on your training.
Yes. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall back to the level of your training. To that end, who was the hardest one of us to potty train between me, Jake, and Sydney?
I honestly do not remember. I mean, now, and I don't say that because I wasn't involved. But through your guys' potty training, you and Jake, I was still playing. So I was certainly gone a little more than with Sydney, because Sydney was born after the league retired me. I don't quite remember it as much. I'm sure your mother did most of it, but I don't recall any crazy stories of how bad it was. But it can get bad. I'm sure it was bad at times, and I'm sure we wanted to bang our head against the wall at times. But I do know it is patience and consistency. And the amazing thing is, Brandon, is when your kid gets older, like when all my kids went to college, they all reverted back and shit and peed their pants, in college at some point.
Yeah, I have
amazing.
I have like very clear memories of at least 2 times shitting my pants as an adult, like from high school on. At a certain point.
Yeah, I've heard Jake say a couple of times, I threw away my underwear, because I was somewhere and I crapped myself and just tossed them. I mean, so there's that.
I've been at the condo back in the day, and there's some poo happenings in that half bath on the main floor, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go back to my dorm.
Let me tell you what, when the 2 guys, your guys' teammates that bought that and turned it into an Airbnb, I swear your mother and I wanted to bleach and burn the place first, just to get rid of everything that was in there and then just, rehab it all because I do not. I mean, we know a lot of stuff that went on in there, but by no means everything. And I'm sure a lot of people reverted back to their kid days with the bathroom issues. But
I mean, one of Brandon's friends from Louisville came up and puked and pissed all over the couch.
Yeah. Listen.
It happened. It
happens. It happened quite a bit at that condo. There's no doubt about it. So while you'll do it with your son now, just know at some point he'll revert back. But good luck to you. It's just it's a part of the parenting that's not one of the pleasant parts, but obviously it has to be done. And eventually, what all kids learn how to do? Go to the bathroom. So you're going to be successful at it. It's just a matter of how long it takes you.
Yeah, I'll say this. We moved to Florida. We're getting him into preschool. He's on the cusp right now. He turns 3 in March. So sometimes to get into those rooms, you have to be potty trained just to get accepted, right? So there's a whole protocol there. So that's why we were thinking the pressure of doing it or not. We got him in the mini preschool, so he's fine and he's getting acclimated. But because potty train has been on the brain, we've been doing diaper off during kind of getting ready for bedtime, right? And that's that thing where he has to listen to his body. He has to communicate with us what's going on. And literally the other day, so proud, huge proud dad moment. He was naked, running around, filling up the bathtub, and he's telling us that he's like, he's feeling something. He's like, he says, I want a diaper. I want a fresh diaper. I need a fresh diaper. I need a fresh diaper. He's like, oh, do you got a potty? 1 or 2? Like, poopy or pee? Didn't want to tell us, so we knew it was poop, right? So we pulled the potty out because we were prepared, but we didn't want to do it. We had done all the training. We had these Mickey Mouse like playing cards that we handed him. It's like, sit there, relax, look at your Mickey cards, no pressure. And we had learned that like we're not supposed to make it a big deal or anything, or not like pressure him or like hover over him and stuff. So we just went and did things. She handled our youngest Mac, and I was in the bathroom. And out of nowhere, he comes screaming, I did it, mommy, daddy, look. And we're just like, oh, like, what'd you do? We were going over there to see some pee. Carter put a log in that thing.
There you go.
Honestly, I thought I shit in that little potty. I was like, oh my God. I was so proud. And it was hard not to make it a big deal because we were so shocked, right? But it was like, okay, we like brought it back down. It was okay. Like they said, one of the things we learned is like not to say it was a big boy thing or whatever. So like I had to renege on that a little bit because I jumped straight there. I was like, oh, big boy. You know? Right. But it was, so he's ready in a sense, and we're almost there. But we had our first successful moment. I know there's going to be a lot of tragic stuff afterwards, but
that's
I
great.
was pretty impressed.
Can I just say this, Brandon? Don't worry about don't say big boy. Forget all that shit. Just do what you feel is right. I mean, I swear to God, there's just too much out there today that parents look at and think I can't say this or I can't say that. There's nothing wrong with saying big boy. Nothing at all. And especially when he drops a big log like that. Yeah.
I was going to say, I feel there's somewhat of like an Alanis Morissette irony in the fact that you're not supposed to celebrate this when I know that there was guys we played with in our locker room that took poop so big they would bring the entire team over into the bathroom to check it out.
Yeah, I get it. Or you take a picture of it. I'll tell you one of my proud moments, Brandon, Mike and Jake, because they're only 15 months apart. When I was playing in Philadelphia, so I got there in the 80s, and by the early 90s, we had a home in Orlando that we would go to in the offseason. And Mike was born in 89 and Jake in 90, so 2 or 3 years old. So they were learning. They were going to the bathroom and such.
Right.
And we had like a pontoon boat out there because it's Florida and you like to fish. So I'd have them on the boat, and a great moment was when both of them, because when they're that close, they just do the same things. They both peed over the railing into the lake. Just dropped trowel and peed right over the railing. And I was like, this is awesome. And I may have uttered big boy. So, and I didn't feel bad about it.
That's one of the biggest obstacles is the articles of clothing. So it sounds like they got that down packed. Just pull it down and pull it out.
They did. That's exactly what they did. It was a good moment.
That's it, man. Like I say, make it easy out there. Just guys in nature, guys being dudes. Word to Steve Adazio.
Because I have 2 sons right now. Now I won't sleep until I see that. Like I need they need to pee at the same time. I need that.
There you go. And pee outdoors somewhere, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're out in the woods or something. Your wife may not want to see that part of it, but that's just guys can do it. So you know why guys do it? Because we can. Okay.
Because we can. And it's also great, less cleanup. Like, I realize I have to set an example, and that's one of the things I love to do is, I love peeing outside. Like, it's, like, I feel like I'm giving back.
Yeah.
Replenishing Mother Earth.
Mike, don't tell your mother this, but in the courtyard where the dogs go to the bathroom in the morning, there's a lot of times I just pee out there, too.
Oh, yeah. Listen, again, you're right out there. You're trying to set the tempo for them to go to the bathroom. So it does just seem like a pack leader thing.
Or if they start peeing first, that just makes you have to go. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go.
There we go. So as always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review. Leave us a 5-star rating. If you've got any more potty training tips or just horror stories, at Gojo Show on Twitter as well. You can get us with that one. Mom, sorry about Dad. But speaking of things that sound like a wet fart, unfortunately, some of the news that we got yesterday out of the NFL kind of limping into Wildcard weekend on the quarterback front. That's a transition for you bastards right there.
Oh, I loved it.
Well, so we got the bad news yesterday as the release of this podcast that Tua Tagovailoa, according to Mike McDaniel, the Dolphins head coach, will not be playing in the game this weekend. He has been ruled out, still missing time due to a concussion suffered there. And also, it looks like Teddy Bridgewater at this point still nursing an injury as well. And so right now they are preparing with Skylar Thompson, their third string quarterback who started the last game of the season, to end up and being the starter in this game. At the same time that the Baltimore Ravens had Lamar Jackson miss his 16th straight practice dealing with a PCL injury that he sustained early in the season. So, Dad, that's the game you'll be calling Sunday night. But in both cases, just a massive bummer because it feels like now as they're getting set to face the Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills, and the Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, 2 of the teams that we expect to be real contenders in the AFC side, that this is sort of a moot point now that we're walking into games that these teams are surely going to get bounced from. from.
And you remember when Miami went up to Buffalo and they lost on the last-second field goal by Buffalo. Tua played in that game, threw for 234 and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Had a good game, and I don't see it with Skylar Thompson. I just don't. No disrespect to him, but I just don't see it happening. And for Baltimore, man, we were talking, Mike. It just the more and more John Harbaugh was asked about Lamar, the shorter the answers got. I know he's got to prepare for a game, but it just seems like, is there more? All the people that believe he's sitting because he's hurt and he doesn't want to mess that up, to instead of going on the field, to is he really not ready to play? And now you got to prepare for a playoff game. And here Tyler Huntley has got tendonitis in his shoulder. He didn't even throw at the last practice. So you're looking at Anthony Brown, who I remember covering when he transferred from BC to Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl when Oregon played Texas. And so I don't know how I'm calling that game. I certainly am going to be, unbiased on that game. But just looking at the setup, how Cincinnati can score points. Going to be very difficult for Baltimore to reciprocate that. So to me, all the pressure falls on the Baltimore defense in this game to try and hold down Cincinnati as best they can to give their offense a chance.
What's it like being on the rest of that team for something like this? Because we hear all the next man up stuff, but it only goes to a certain point. Both these teams on their third string quarterback. Like, you were in Miami when Dan Marino got hurt when you guys were supposed to be really good. Like, what's that do to the rest of the locker room here? Like, how realistic can you be, and how much do you have to just try and bury your head in the sand and keep going about your work?
1993, we were 9-2 after 11 games. We had the best record in the NFL. And by the way, they still didn't sell out in Miami. Just embarrassing. We're in Cleveland, and Marino is in the pocket, nobody around him, and he snaps his Achilles. And we're just like, no way that happened. I went through that in Philly in 91 when we thought we had our best team, a great shot at the Super Bowl, and Bryce Popp from Green Bay hit Randall Cunningham in the knee, opening game of the season, and blew his knee out. We're like, you got to be shitting me that this went on. So, yeah, and after that, we did not – Scott Mitchell went into quarterback. Now, again, it wasn't all on Scott, but we didn't win another game. We lost the last 5 of our games, and the last loss was to the Patriots that we needed to win to get in the playoffs, and we didn't. So we didn't even make the playoffs that year. So players will all say the right thing. In their individual meeting rooms, they're going to say, okay, we got to make up for it. Wide receivers, we got to catch anything that's near us. Defense, we have to just stymie that offense. Get turnovers. We have to give our offense a chance. So that's what they'll say publicly. That's what they'll say in their meeting rooms. When they go home at night, they may feel a little different. Like, man, we're going to need the other team to really F up here, to help us along. We're going to need a Josh Allen red zone turnover, which we've had. He's got 5 of them this year, so it's not like it might not happen. So you're going to need things like that to happen for both Baltimore and Miami.
I feel a lot better about the possibility of that for Baltimore, I will say. I think just because you've got a Buffalo team that I saw too, they're opening up the practice window for Micah Hyde, their safety that's missed most of the season, and could get some help there. Obviously, they're going in without Von Miller, but that team is so complete across the board when we talk about rosters in the AFC, or has been for a majority of the weekend. They gave up a bunch of yards to the Patriots in the round before, but when you go back and look at the Week 18 matchup between the Bengals and the Ravens, that was a game where Anthony Brown turned the ball over twice early in that game, once getting hit and throwing a bad ball up there, once with a ball that bounced off the receiver's hands, was kind of behind him there, but again, to Dad's point, with the backup, with a third-string quarterback, you got to catch that shit. You got to make it work for that guy in that scenario. And that being said, their defense was still able to keep them relatively in that game because of the way they've played Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's 2 worst games as a passer, I think by EPA per dropback this year, have been against the Baltimore Ravens. So that group, especially once Roquan Smith came over, has figured some shit out on the other side, playing back, making Burrow take the stuff up underneath. And so if they can do that offensively, they sat J.K. Dobbins in that last week. They sat Mark Andrews that last week. Both those guys are going to be back on the field. So offensively, I'd imagine that game plan is going to look a lot different, because Baltimore went into that game and said, we don't really give a shit about winning this game. We're trying to make sure everyone's healthy for the real one.
Yeah, they're certainly going to be stocked better on offense, no doubt about it, to run, especially to run the ball, and then obviously with Andrews. Listen, defensively, they got to get after Burrow. Remember the beginning of the season? I think the first 2 games, Burrow was sacked like 13 times. Mm-hmm. He's been sacked 7 times, 6 times, 5 times, 3 times. Now, they're on an 8-game winning streak right now. And in those 8 games, he was sacked 12 times. So Burrow does get hit. So that's something the Ravens are going to need to do. They're going to need to pressure him and get him off his point a little bit. But, and I'm just looking for things to help because – bottom line, though, even if he gets off his point, you can heave the ball up because you got 2 receivers over 1,000, 3 receivers over 700 yards. I mean, it's crazy that he can just hoist that ball up and let those guys do the work.
Well, I think it's crazy that he can take those hits and still do the work.
Yep.
Like he was the most sacked quarterback last year and made it to the Super Bowl. Like I'm not afraid of Joe Burrow getting hit, especially not now where he's using his legs to hurt the opposing team. Like I'm terrified of Joe Burrow. Like I'm not afraid of the Bengals. I still see them as the lowly Bengals that I grew up with in the 90s and just like not really being competitive. Maybe not 90s, but Corey Dillon was the one bright spot for the Bengals for a very long time. But Joe Burrow is different in a way that I can't. I do feel like that the time of possession will be more in Baltimore's favor in this game, and that
without a doubt, yes,
like that's going to help them and like be in their favor, and that may be enough. But Joe Burrow I think he wants to get back. He has that thing where he can take over the game because he wants to get back to that big game again, and he will.
The only thing I'll say about the time of possession, I think early on, but if Baltimore falls down but back off by a couple of scores, and Baltimore has to start passing, then they're not going to win that, but. They have the running game, the 2-headed monster running game. For Cincinnati, listen, they're mediocre defense by ranking. They have 30 sacks on the year, not a ton. That could help if it's Anthony Brown to have more time in the pocket, not get harassed as much. I mean, that's something Cincinnati needs to still do a better job of.
Yeah, I'd say, too, I mean, you talked about Joe Burrow getting hit. The offensive line, when things were getting better, had been on the field altogether. Now, you've lost Lyle Collins for the rest of the season. You've lost Alex Kappa. The whole right side of your offensive line's new and did a better job than they had any right to with backups being in there in these last couple of games. But that's still something that you can try and work at there. So I don't feel great about it for the Ravens by any means at all, which is a shame because that defense, if Lamar Jackson's on the field for them and the way that defense had played down the stretch of the year, because we go back to the beginning of the season and the defense was the one giving up the goods in the fourth quarter every time. They're giving up the big plays. There's a lack of communication on the back end that now, again, it's never just one player, but it does feel like Roquan Smith, who just got the big bag, has been a guy that's really unlocked the best parts about so many of his other teammates, right? It's let Patrick Queen play a lot faster. Defensively in the secondary, Kyle Hamilton, Notre Dame's very own, has really come on as that third safety playing that overhang spot as sort of a big nickel player here. He's been sensational down the stretch of the season. So the defense... pass rush wise, I think that's an area where it could be trouble because I don't know if they have, one guy necessarily that's dominated or can really take over a game like that. And so they've had to resort to pressure. And that's really the area where Burrow can hurt you because of what Brandon brought up, the way he can move around in the pocket.
Yeah, I think it's Justin Houston leads the way with like 9.5 sacks. They have 48 on the year. So, they've gotten after the passer pretty well. Defense will be interesting in this game. The 12 teams, there are 4 top 10. San Francisco is number 1. Buffalo is number 6. Tampa Bay is number 9. And Baltimore is number 10. The rest of them are 16 or lower. So there's 8 of the teams are in the bottom half statistically on the defensive side of the ball, which will make things pretty interesting.
Are you worried that defense wins championships is now sunsetting as a football axiom, Dad?
No. Defense always wins championships. That'll never change through the history of the game from when it started to when it ends. So I'm sticking with it.
I feel like that means you need to be rooting hard for the 49ers, because if the 49ers manage to even get to the Super Bowl, it will be the ultimate testament to defense wins championships. Defense and Kyle Shanahan, who I like. Kyle Shanahan as the offensive coordinator to me, and this is no disrespect to Brock Purdy, who has played really well, but based on how we've seen that offense continue to shine no matter who's under center, it's like, speaking of, potty training your kids, it's like when you're a parent and you put the fake steering wheel on the passenger seat for your kid in the car so they feel like they're driving the car, but in actuality you're over there operating all the heavy machinery. That's what being a 49ers quarterback feels like.
I agree. Yeah. I'm with, but listen, he's done a good job. He's been asked to, he's done what he's been asked to do. He gets the ball to the people that need the ball, and the defense plays great. I mean, would anybody argue that they're the most complete team in the playoffs? I know it's probably between them and Philly if you had to pick, because the big difference there is Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy. There's certainly a difference going on there. But I just mentioned defenses. Those are all the teams that are playing, the two teams that are. San Francisco is the number one defense, and I think Kansas City is right outside the top 10. One of the biggest reasons because they have that monster Chris Jones in the middle. But I personally, I think it is going to hold serve in the NFC and going to be Philly and San Francisco in the NFC Championship.
Yeah, that one should be real chalky.
I think they are the two best teams. And I think, to me, I think the first round possible upset, because I don't know, kind of like the NCAA tournament where you don't consider 8-9 an upset. Do we consider 4-5 an upset? I know if Jacksonville's the underdog, right? And they smoked the Chargers 38-10, I think, in week 3. But that's when the Chargers weren't playing very well. But they're a slight underdog. And then do we think it's a big upset if Dallas wins or Tampa wins? I mean, I did that first game of the season, and what a shit game that was. 19-3, Tampa Bay beat Dallas. That's a game Dak got hurt, and it was a horrible game, but it was week 1, so you get it. So for me, I think if anybody's talking a first-round upset, I lean toward the Giants at Minnesota as a possibility of an upset. What a game that was during the regular season on the 61-yard field goal or whatever it was to win it. So that's where I would go if there's going to be an upset.
But is there really any upsets on Wildcard weekend? I feel like that's the time where we finally pay attention to a team that's doing something at the right time.
Well, a lot of it, quite honestly, is how you're playing at the end of the year. Take the Chargers. They were not playing well early on, and they like not as much as Cincy, because Cincy is on a roll, but Cincy is doing what they did last year. They're playing their best ball going into the playoffs and getting ready to make that run. But I'm like, my God, the AFC with Kansas City, Buffalo, and Cincinnati, and then the drop-off. But the Chargers have been playing well toward the end of the year. Now, their Achilles heel is their run defense. It's not very good at all. So, if Etienne can run the ball on them and they can control it that way, that could be trouble for the Chargers.
Yeah, both defenses there. I mean, the run defense for them, the secondary for the Jags. All things that could potentially get lit up there. So, yeah, I'm with you as far as the potential for upset in this opening weekend. And honestly, even with the Vikings, that's in seed alone, because we know record-wise, seed-wise, they're up there. But quality of play-wise, especially anytime they've seen a quality opponent, it's been a much different story with that team. On the AFC side...
That's with the Jaguars. I mean, they're not playing they're playing great football. They're not playing complimentary football right now.
They're like, I think, a different story though also to these teams because of the quarterback situation. That's how we judge a lot of these. So having Trevor Lawrence under center, having Justin Herbert under center, that's why I wanted to go back to the Dolphins portion of things, because they're the ones that I've really kind of written off with this injury.
Right.
And Dad, with where Tua sits now, do you think this is like career threatening? Do you think we're talking about him potentially like having to sit down and have that conversation this offseason?
I don't think he will. In all honesty, I think he'll come back and play. But it certainly could have monetary implications, because early on, was there any doubt he was going to get a contract? Right? I mean, early on, he was going to get a contract, and we didn't think Daniel Jones was going to get a contract. Now flip him. Daniel Jones is going to get paid. And I don't know if Daniel Jones will ever throw 30 touchdowns in a season, but he doesn't turn the ball over, and he leads the team well. And now Tua came in with the hip from Alabama, and now, got nicked up a little early on and now got his chance and was playing great. And now with the concussions, I'll tell you what he has, if his career is close to being over, is a possible lawsuit if they can prove the NFL handled it poorly about future earnings of what he could have got. That will be an interesting battle for that. But I believe we know he's out, and I don't think they're going to win, so he'll have the entire offseason. I do think he's going to come back and play next year. I don't think they're going to give him that big deal. I mean, do either one of you guys think that they're going to say, yeah, we're going to put all this money into you right now?
He hasn't been healthy enough for a full season to warrant giving him that amount of money. As accurate as he is, Tom Brady will tell you got to be on the field to be effective.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think that that's going to be a conversation, because I think he is going to have to sit and really assess, am I going to keep doing this going forward? Because when you think about it, his career has been this is his second. I would consider what went on this season a traumatic injury, right? What we saw in that Thursday night game where he was coming off the short weekend, that coupled with a hip injury in college that was described as the kind of thing that people in car accidents suffer and survive. This is back-to-back times now for a guy that we have already seen, listen, on the field with the things that happened last year around the trade deadline, the Watson rumors. Mike McDaniel had to come in and rebuild this guy's confidence this season, and a lot of that was just how things had gone for him as an employee, how things had gone on the field of play, let alone now a guy who had to recover from that hip injury, now having to think more about, all right, is anytime I'm gonna get hit? I always go back and think about, we just talked about him for the Hall of Fame yesterday, Luke Kuechly by the end of his career. Remember that one concussion, barely took a blow, and you saw him on the field crying out of sorts. It was scary to watch. And so you go back to that and you just wonder, with all of it happening in such rapid succession here, does it change the way that you look at this situation? And I think for Tua, this could be that kind of introspection.
So I think because of it's amazing what an offseason does when you can sit back, take a breath, and kind of play things out. That's why I think he'll at least try and play again. And I got to remember the timing. You guys may know this better than me. So he's finishing his third year. So can't they either pick up his fifth-year option or give him an extension this offseason? Either way, I don't. If they can, I don't think they would do either, right? I mean, are you going to pick up his fifth-year option? You're going to give him an extension? I just think you keep letting it play out.
Yeah, so the Dolphins will have to decide this offseason if they want to pick up his fifth-year option. It would, according to Over the Cap, I think be around $22.6 million if they wanted to. But yes, he's also in that class of players that will now be eligible for extensions after this season. So. Okay.
I would be stunned if they did either. We honestly don't know. Yes, he played well, but we all know, my God, this is the saying for all of us as football players, the best ability is availability. And if you can't be available, we can't invest all that money in you.
But Tua is unfortunately one of those, I hate to be right, and I feel terrible now, but I didn't trust him coming out of Alabama. I know how talented he was and how great he was, but how much he struggled to stay on the field near the end of his tenure there gave me questions as he stepped onto the NFL field. And now, so I don't know how other people view Tua enough to even – I don't know where his value is for other people.
So I agree with that coming out of college. So then what happens? Obviously, he had the hip. And then the second year when he's starting – then all the talk is coming about Deshaun Watson, right? And he wasn't playing that great. But go back to when the trade deadline ended last year. And then they didn't get Deshaun Watson, so that wasn't going to happen. His play picked up at the end of last year. Now I will say he may be someone who lets things get inside his head a little bit, because he wasn't playing that well before that, and he was playing well after that. So now, this season, Deshaun Watson went to Cleveland. That wasn't going to be the issue. Mike McDaniel said, you're the guy, so much so I'm making a 700-play tape of the good things you did to build your confidence back up. And let's say it. Tua went out. They got him weapons, and he made the most of it. He was playing great football. You have to give him that. But then, there you go. Like you said, Brandon, the injury bug hit again. through no fault of his own, obviously, and then the debacle of him going back out on the field added to it. But I would be stunned if he didn't come back, unless, again, he had a doctor saying, dude, you just can't do this. But I still don't think we have enough information on head injuries long term. We're getting it more and more. I understand, with the whole CT and everything, but we still need a lot more study. Now it's just, boy, I think something bad could happen later in my life, so should I stop right now?
Right.
I don't think there's a medical doctor or the medical profession that has enough information that says, Tua, if you get one more concussion, you're gonna, be
I'm not even saying it's some sort of binary result wise. And the one thing that we do here is concussion recovery is also not the same for every person, and it's non-linear. Right. You could feel better one day and then feel not as good the next day. It's all going to be about just Tua's comfort level going back out into that situation. That's the thought process here. Less than anyone can guarantee him a certain outcome, and more having to deal with the uncomfortable uncertainty that comes with having had your body in that position already as many times as he has.
I do think he comes back.
In which case, if he does come back, I'd have to imagine the Dolphins then have to pick up his fifth-year option. Like, 22 is not a terrible number for a starting quarterback anymore.
It's not. If you can get away with your starting quarterback making $22 million, you're right. That's not a terrible number.
Like, it's not an awful number. Now, I don't know what the Dolphins' cap situation is in a number of other pictures, because obviously they were big spenders this past offseason. They brought in Bradley Chubb as well. So there is money on this roster. But again, I'd also have to imagine in their planning heading into this, they had an understanding of, all right, if this year goes well the way we want to at quarterback, at the very least, we're probably talking about the fifth-year option and how that comes up. And so unless they've been doing malpractice and financial planning down there, I'd have to imagine for the most important position in football, for the player that was the centerpiece of all this, that you spent around, like, Dad, to your point, they spent that money to bring those pieces in to find out about their quarterback. They did what the Browns did for Baker Mayfield. They did to an extent what Baltimore did for Lamar Jackson, and here they did the same thing. So I'd have to imagine they'd have that factored in and say, all right, if he's going to come back and Tua still wants to play, the option seems like the thing to do if you're Miami, so you're not committed for too long into the future while you try and decide that, but you've still got a solution for the present with a quarterback that, when he's been on the field, has played really good football in this system for you.
Brandon,
listen,
you don't look like you agree.
Mike McDaniel has an uphill battle, because you're dealing with a guy who is already dealing with his own demons, right? And then once that money hits and the contract is looking in the face, then it's like, it's not that you suck, because we all know you don't suck. You're an MVP candidate at some point in time during the season, but your value is in question. And right now it has to be set at this price so that the rest of the team can grow. And I don't know emotionally, mentally, how Tua can bounce back if he does feel slighted from the Dolphins.
Yeah, well, at this point, I think we're past the slight that came from last year. I think this year, he's clearly seen and felt the love. He talked about it from this current regime.
I could definitely understand the slight, because the owners publicly are talking about Deshaun Watson and trading for him, or whether publicly or not, we knew he was doing that. Yes, I would feel slighted then, but that didn't happen, and Tua was proving himself this year. So I don't think if you're the Dolphins, you say, Tua, listen, I mean, we thought you played great, but you weren't on the field for some, if anything, like you said, Mike, we'll give you the fifth-year option, but there's no way we're doing some kind of a 5-year, $200 million deal of what, starting quarterbacks may be making or whatever it might be. I just don't think that would be good business practice by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it wouldn't be. And I mean, even if we removed the injury portion of things here, there is also the question, too, of, is Tua Tagovailoa a quarterback that can elevate you beyond the system, or is he a guy when everything's going well, it can go well with him? You see the top end of the league quarterbacks, the guys that are getting those money deals, more often than not, the ones that can exist outside and operate outside of that system. So it gets only more complicated from here on out for Tua Tagovailoa. It is just on the very surface level, though, a damn shame that we're not going to get to see him, and that he's not healthy enough to go this weekend, that Lamar is trending in that direction right now. We'll see what the final news is there, and hope for the best as Dad gets ready for that one on Sunday Night Football. In the meantime, though, we promised people a list. We have gotten to the end of the 2022 calendar year. There's been a lot of talk. The Globes did, again, happen the other night in a way that I didn't watch. I've seen some of it hit the internet here, but it got us to trying to put this in the hands of the experts. So, Dad, we have asked you, coming off of your neck injury here, shooting it up and getting back out onto the field, to also come correct with a list to entertain us here with your top 5 shows that you watched in 2022. Do you have the list? I see you looking concerned.
So it's the shows I've watched in 2022. So you're looking for now, because one of my favorite TV shows of all time was MASH. I mean, one of my favorites of all time. And for all you youngsters out there, Google MASH finale. Okay? MASH series finale will be always the most watched single TV episode of all time. So don't give me that disrespectful shaking of the head, Brandon. Don't do it. Okay?
I know. It's just the thing we always hear from you guys. Like, MASH.
From you guys, what? Us old guys? But you know what? Tell me the lie. Tell me the lie. Tell me one of your newfangled shows that have rated anything like that. Now, I will say, I get it. Back then, there weren't as many channels, so I do understand from that standpoint. But you know what? You got to give it the respect it deserves.
Yes, but we already know a long list of those TV shows because we grew up watching those in syndication. Like, we know the hits. Like, but MASH it wasn't that.
it
So
wasn't that.
I will say MASH is a really good show. I watched a bunch of that because of my dad growing up. MASH is a really good show. I was just laughing at wanting to think about how many things my dad, over the course of appearing on this podcast, has told the youth to Google in the name of showing off his culture. How many times the exact phrase for you youngsters out there, if you don't know blank, Google blank, has been said by my dad on this podcast. But also my question is, what about this list prompted you to bring up MASH? Why was that a part of this conversation here?
Well, at first, because I thought you meant all-time TV shows of what I like watching. Okay, and so when you said that always comes up as one of the first for me. If you want to talk about now, Head and Shoulders, number 1 is Yellowstone. I mean, without question, is Yellowstone. I mean, have either one of you guys been watching this thing yet?
No, I haven't got into it yet. I heard that it's violent.
What's violent? What are you afraid of violence? I mean, what?
No, any show that it is very, very popular, and it's like cowboyish, and then people are saying you got to watch this, and then you find out that just MFers are getting slain left and right.
No, it's not overly. It's not about death and destruction. I mean, there is some of that, but there is not more violence than drama in this. There's more drama than violence. The one character, Rip, could be the greatest cowboy actor of all time. There may be no tougher cowboy I've ever seen on the big screen or the little screen than Rip, who plays Rip. Cole Hauser, I think, is his name.
Tougher than any incredible Clint Eastwood character.
Yes. Oh, wow. Right there with him. This dude Rip is just a straight-up badass. I would be one of those if I were an actor and I was reading the script and this is how tough I got to be. I would be so hyped that basically in every scene, I'm the toughest motherfucker there is in camera range here. This is what the script says, so this is what I'm going to be. Hopefully I'm sure he's a nice guy in real life or whatever. That doesn't matter to me. It's what the actor is, and he's unbelievable.
You would be method acting off set then and just bullying people around the set, walking back to your trailer and just shouldering into people.
Just amazing. So Yellowstone is right there. Now, again, you said 2022, so does that take out Breaking Bad?
Yes. I mean, in theory, yes. I was saying, and I was saying less even shows that were released in 2022 and more shows that you watched personally. Because again, your rate of consumption is different than most people. So I know for you've watched a lot more TV this calendar year than I have.
I have. White Lotus, very, very good as well. The second season of that just finished up.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did like that a lot. Again, this wasn't this year, but Ozark wasn't too long ago. I loved Ozark.
Wait, so you're going off the cuff now. What was the list that you had prepared then? What was the list that you had here prepared that you wanted to share?
I had a few. I had Yellowstone, I had White Lotus, I had Ozark, I had Breaking Bad, I had Billions, and I had Viking, which was one of the great series I've watched on Netflix. I mean, fucking awesome.
History Channel still printing checks from that one.
Yeah. So those are the ones. I'm sorry that I didn't know, 22 of what I was watching now.
So just to be clear for it title-wise, that is Mike Golic Sr.'s top TV shows he's ever watched, top TV shows of all time. How did you actually these
were top these were of the shows over the last number of years that I have enjoyed the most. So that's why I brought up MASH, because growing up I loved it. I still watch it occasionally in syndication, though. As you guys would know, Everybody Loves Raymond is on my, Chris and I, my wife and I's, every night here. But ones I've watched, Yellowstone, I guess, being the most recent, and White Lotus as well. So those would fit into what you guys are talking to now. But I loved Viking. I loved that series. And Ozark I thought was phenomenal. And then Breaking Bad and Billions were great.
Can you answer a question for me about Everybody Loves Raymond?
Yeah.
Why the hell did they make them have kids? I feel like those kids are as important as the spoon on the wall.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Well, they needed to make them a family. Deborah had to be a housewife. She needed to be at home. That was part of the whole shtick, that Ray was the sports writer away. She was at home with the kids. And a reason why, Marie came over all the time. To see the grandkids and to see Ray. So they were, I guess, more props really than anything else.
That's 100% what they were. They were props. Yeah. That's why I remember when you had your top list of TV dads, I think you tried to sneak Ray Romano in there.
I did, and he wasn't a good dad. You're right.
Well, we don't know if he's a good dad because we never see the freaking kids.
No, I mean, in the times you see the kids or there needs to be parenting, Ray doesn't do it. So he actually was not a very good TV dad. So to be honest with you guys, when you say 2022, I'm not going to lie. I haven't found many shows that I've loved. I've watched them because, in flying and traveling, I usually get all my work done for my games before I head out. So that's kind of like a thing in me. I got to have it done. So I have free time, and I'll usually download movies or TV shows. And you guys are talking about TV shows. I haven't really, and I've tried with a few, like The Rookie or The Recruit or a few others, and they're okay. They're just okay.
Did you watch Severance, the Apple TV Plus show that everybody was gaga over this year?
No. Severance? Okay, I got to try that.
All right, there we go. So you didn't get that one. And then where were you at on House of the Dragon as someone who is a Game of Thrones watcher, the prequel that showed up this fall?
So here's the thing about Game of Thrones and House of Dragon. House of the Dragon, is that what it is? Yeah. I like them, but I almost have to watch too hard to understand all the houses and the families and the everything. And I don't care that much about that. I want to see dragons. I want to see killings. I want to see that kind of shit. So I find myself too much. Okay, wait, who do they belong to? Wait, who are they part of? What's at the house of? A little too much. Because Mike, I know you deep dive stuff, and I don't deep dive. I watch, and when it's over, I go to the next thing. So there's no deep dive for me. So I like them. I don't love them. I'll watch them, but they won't be in my favorite list.
I will say I do have the tendency to do what our good friend Katie Nolan once said on this podcast, which was turn recess into homework, where I'm consuming all of the secondary. Because I said the other day, the Game of Thrones universe and House of Dragon is a lot like college football. There's a ton of history. There's a lot of names. There's some very specific stuff you've got to know about each house that's involved in it. And you tend to know people more by their haircuts and geographical location. That kind of is, I think, the similarity between the two. So I can understand that.
Katie is that's why I love her. She's 1,000% right. You turn recess into homework. I will never be accused of that. I will always like to turn homework into recess. I will always like to go the other way. I'm just looking at Severance real quick, and I have to ask this because Paramount Plus, like with Yellowstone, I can't download. You can't down. Remember, HBO used to be like that. HBO
really?
Max, you used to not be able to download. Now you can. Can you download like Apple Plus TV? Can you download those?
I don't.
Because that's what I normally do. I download these for my plane flights. So that's why I don't know if I can download it or not.
I'm not 100% sure on that one. For those keeping score at home, I know you can do it on Netflix. I know you can do it on HBO Max now. I know you can do it on Hulu at this point, and I know you can do it on Amazon Video. But other than
and Showtime. That's the other one. Amazon Prime. That's another one where I watch a lot of stuff too. What have I seen? Oh, I just watched. I like it. Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan.
It's a good one.
I do like that.
It's really, it was a jarring thing for me to try and have to look at John Krasinski in that way.
I know.
The first time he takes off his shirt and there's like scars and abs, and we're supposed to believe that he's been this decorated service member after seeing him as fucking Jim Halpert in The Office.
I know.
I give him credit for trying to overcome that, because outside of Steve Carell, there have not been a lot of people from The Office that have been able to transcend their character on that show.
You're right. It is tough to make the transition, but I do like that series. So I just finished that season as well. Again, I liked it. I didn't love it. The one I loved is Yellowstone. That's by far and away. I really enjoyed White Lotus. I think they do a really good job with it. I do like it a lot. But Yellowstone, without a doubt, is number one for me. But I'm going to check out Severance for sure now.
Well, to the point of Severance is only in one season. Okay. That's great. I know Yellowstone is in its 5th season.
I already know I'm going to get so many texts with questions about Severance from my dad. I know going into this, this is a coin flip where you may enjoy it, and then there's going to be a couple episodes in there where you text me like, what the fuck is going on?
Really?
Here? Yes.
Really?
Yes.
And they say it starts slow, but it has like Charlotte was on yesterday. She says the best finale she's seen in years, maybe of all time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. I didn't have the heart to say that I disagreed, but that was Charlotte's assertion yesterday, and I'm a coward, so I'll say it now that I actually was left wanting a little bit at the finale of that show.
All right, I'm looking at it now, and I'm doing it. I think you can download. I'm downloading as we speak, so hopefully that works out.
Well, speaking of the recess to homework, that's why I like these limited series a little bit. Like, I really enjoy the little bite size. Like, shouts out to Mike White, not the Jets, the writer and director of White Lotus.
Yes,
but he got cleared for a 3rd season, and I'm bought in. It's like I don't even care anymore. Like, if there's a formula, you know what I mean? It's like if your favorite TV show, it's almost if MASH wasn't just in wherever the wing where all the people were hurt. It's like if it went, you know what I mean, if those characters went back home, not just the spinoff, but like the same beats.
I'm watching a limited series right now called Kaleidoscope. It's the one where you can start anywhere on it. And
yes, what was your first episode? What color?
Oh God, I don't. It might have been green. I'm not positive because I've been flying through it. I only have like 1.5 episodes left, but yeah. So you've seen it?
No, I just know that everyone's first episode is a different color.
Yes. It's pretty good. I mean, it's obviously the planning of this monster $7 billion heist they're talking about. I won't say any more.
Love a good heist movie or series. Love a good heist.
I actually watched one on Netflix. It was actually called The Heist. It was same thing. It was a limited series, and it was pretty cool too. So
red jumpsuits, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly, and the masks. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard they got a little racy.
It got a little. You got going a little bit.
Wait, racy or racist? Like
no, racy.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
It was a story of somebody whose like kids were trying to show him. But they walked out of the room right before like some scenes happened. Mm-hmm. It was like they didn't want to watch the sexy parts with their parents.
There is nothing more difficult, because Dad, you talked about watching this while you fly, than trying to watch a graphic show while you're flying, because I try and tell myself, hey, this is my screen. It's my personal space. If someone wants to look, that's on them. Yeah. I don't need to concern myself. But if I'm next to like a little old lady or a little kid, and all of a sudden some Game of Thrones incest sex scene comes on, I feel a little bit of shame, and I turn down the brightness really low on my thing thing so that hopefully no one can see from the sides.
I do the same thing. I pull it in close to me, like close to my chest, and just tilt it so I can just see it. Because I'm the same way. Because usually I'll put it on my food tray, but I kind of look around and I see who has a direct line of sight to this thing, knowing that if it gets going in a certain direction, that I gotta pull it in.
Have you seen Seth Rogen's Sausage Party?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes.
I saw that on a plane.
Oh.
A 5 to 7 year old next to me was enthralled at the beginning. How ashamed I felt when he finally we got to the end of that.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
As a real coming of age tale for that kid.
Yeah. Hey, at some point he's got to learn, right?
Will you guys ever go ahead?
I would say the worst is when you watch something and you don't know what's coming on the plane and you end up crying.
Oh
yeah.
Laughing, I don't mind. I'll laugh out loud and people want to look at me. But all of a sudden, when you're starting to well up and you're going, oh my God, I'm going to be. People look over and crying on the plane, And then if you're crying hysterically, if by chance you were dumb enough to watch Marley and Me on a flight or something, and just bawl your eyes out.
They can't be dumber than you. My dad decided to watch Marley and Me for the first time days after we had put one of our dogs down.
What?
Like days.
I got sentimental about it, and I remember Sydney being at home saying, I'm going upstairs. I am not going to bed. And I literally was watching that, and she could hear me sobbing from downstairs watching that movie. I was the same way. At one point during, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? But I had to keep going. I had to keep watching it, and it was horrific. I cried so hard.
I like, you knew what that movie was about.
It was my own fault all the way. Completely true.
Because at
So
least
I know this about so much that I've never seen it.
Yes.
Oh, no.
I don't want to put myself through that.
No.
I cried during Homeward Bound.
Oh
no!
Man,
you would be on the ground then, just rolling and sobbing for this.
See, because at least watching on a plane, what I've heard, and I've never looked up the science behind this, but I just take it as gospel, is that you get more emotional easier at altitude. So you're more likely to cry watching something at altitude for some reason.
Where did you ever read that? Is this on one of your deep dives into the internet somewhere?
No, this is probably something that I read on like an SAT question that's not 100% fact. But because it was on a standardized test, I probably internalized it. And so now, because Dad, the exact scenario you described was me watching Coco on my iPad on a plane, the Disney Pixar movie about Dia de los Muertos. I was watching Coco and I saw tears just hitting my iPad, and people think I'm joking. A woman across the aisle looked over at me and asked, "Are you okay?" And I was not. I was not fucking okay. Remember me.
Oh my God!
When
you put that movie on, did you know you might cry, or do you have no idea?
I knew it was like most Disney Pixar movies, where at the core of it is usually like we saw Inside Out as a family, and I think Indianapolis in theaters sobbed at the end of that movie. That is a devastating film at any altitude. So I always know with these Disney Pixar films, there's a chance the lesson in there is going to get to me, but I was not ready for it to hit that hard.
Yeah, it is. That is something. And then there's no going back. I mean, you either have to shut it off, but you don't want to shut it off, and you just got to work yourself through all the tears.
Well, you asked how did Mike know that little snippet. Don't you know sometimes you just hear something from one of your smart friends and you take it as gospel? Yep. That was one of those things. Because Mike told me that one time and I was like, altitude, you'll get to loosen them tear ducts up a little bit.
I have never heard that in my life. You know what?
I reached out to it. You know what it was? I tweeted about crying watching an Aretha Franklin movie. It was like a movie, just like a documentary about Aretha Franklin.
Right.
And it was not about Aretha Franklin. It was just her singing in a church for an hour, and I cried during that, and I tweeted about it, and me and Mike had a conversation about the loose tear ducts.
That is none of what you have said, either of you, has given me any proof of documentation that this is medically accepted, that in higher altitude your tear ducts loosen, as you put it, Brandon. I'm going to need...
Mike Golic Jr. said it. Gojo.
That doesn't mean shit, okay? That doesn't mean a thing.
Right now I'm looking at a Time magazine article titled, "This is why you're more likely to cry on an airplane, according to a psychologist." It appears very long and involved, so I'm not going to try and read it right now. I saw a Daily Telegraph article that also had that in there, but I had to pay to see it, so I wasn't going to do that. And so, to be continued on that at Gojo Show on Twitter, if you know any of the science behind that. Will you guys, we talked about hiding in shame the sex scenes that you watch.
Yeah.
If you feel a person watching over your shoulder what you've got, will you do the thing where you kind of open it up so they can watch along a little bit more if you feel the eyes there?
Yeah, I definitely will. I've done that when I've been able to get a game on my iPad or something.
Oh,
and
the
to have
best.
people watch. Yeah, but I definitely will. Yeah, if someone wants to watch, I'll let them watch. I have no problem with it. The problem is they can't hear it, so.
Yeah, but I mean, I put the subtitles on a lot of things that I'm watching because I've got the noise canceling headphones, but I love subtitles on anything I'm watching.
Do you really? I'm the opposite. I hate subtitles. I get rid of them all the time. All the time. Even when a movie's in French, I just try and understand it in French.
You just hope that part of your brain just clicks in magically.
I'm lying, but
Yeah,
But do you just listen to it really loud? Like I can't. I feel like I need the words.
Mike, you gave me these headphones that the noise cancellation. I hear just fine. I have zero issue. If they're regular, like if I had these little earbuds that I have in now, I wouldn't be able to hear it as well. Those noise canceling, they work. I can hear perfectly fine.
Makes all the difference in the world there.
Yep.
If you're traveling regularly enough, treat yourself if you're able to with something like that, because I promise it'll improve the experience tenfold there.
Absolutely right.
That is my dad's sort of list of some of the shows that he has enjoyed most in 2022. If you disagree with anything that was said there at Gojo Show on Twitter, you can feel free to do so.
Just so this is what Mike texted me, Brandon. You tell me what I should infer from this.
Can't wait.
Do you think you could cobble together a list of your 4 or 5 favorite TV shows? Oh, you watched this year. Shit. All right, I didn't see that.
But no. I think in there is you're out, Mr.
That I
Golic
watched
Sr.
this year. It doesn't.
Yes.
Well, I mean.
So if you watched an episode of MASH at any point this year, that it can
I watched it. It's exactly right.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't say 2022 or like, you didn't do the 2022-2023 thing.
Yeah. I do think I have a little bit of it out there because the first thing I thought of was MASH, quite honestly. My old ass thought of MASH.
All roads lead back to MASH. Google it, kids. Google it, you rat bastards.
50 million people watch the series finale. One of the greatest finales ever.
Oh my God.
Do you know what Rolling Stones? So it made me go through and look at like a list of top TV shows of all time. Rolling Stones top 100. Sopranos I have as number 1. Yeah. I never watched Sopranos ever. Never watched it.
I didn't either.
You haven't seen it?
I've never seen that or The Wire.
No. Now The Wire I saw. That was number 4, I think, and I really liked it. I didn't like the list because MASH was number 25. But what was number 30? Have you guys ever seen? Speaking of characters from like Seinfeld, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Veep was like number 13.
I love how we all just barf that name.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Julie Louis-Dreyfus.
No, it's Julia. It's Julia Louis-Dreyfus. It's not.
Is it Julia?
Julia. Hi, I'm Mrs. Julia Gulia.
It is Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Yes.
No, you
Julia
don't pronounce
Gulia.
the S.
You don't.
No.
It's like Illinois.
It's
Julia
Louis.
Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah.
Have you not seen Sopranos and your firstborn was born in New Jersey?
I know. I never saw it.
Veep is an incredible show.
Going quickly to Julia Veep was a great show. She was great in that show, yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's a Samuel L. Jackson masterclass of curse words strewn together by all the characters on that show.
Absolutely agreed. Really, really good. Yeah. All right, I'm sorry if I screwed your list up, but I thought it led to some pretty good watching conversation.
We got exactly where we needed to go, exactly how we needed to get there, and it's a good reminder. All roads lead back to MASH. All roads on this podcast lead to this question, though, as we round this thing out with 3 quick stories. At the end of the day, Brandon, do you know what time it is?
This, that, and the third. This, that, and the third.
That's the
way we became the Brady Bunch.
Oh, let me tell you, Brandon. My wife listens to this pod all the time. She is going to be ecstatic when that was by far her favorite show of all time.
And not for nothing, a very progressive show for its time about a blended family on television.
Sure is. Yeah, until you read the backstory of who was hoeing with who on that show.
They were busy.
Yeah,
the brothers and sisters
very wholesome on stage. Maybe not so much off stage.
I was going to say, I mean, listen, we all watch Game of Thrones now, so let he who is without that sin cast the first stone. If you enjoyed that, like my mom will, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. 5-star rating, review, Brady Bunch, game time. All right, guys, 3 quick stories on the way out here. Let's start with this. The good news that everyone's been looking for. He spent 9 days in 2 hospitals, but after all of that ordeal, Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin was discharged from Buffalo General Medical Center and Gates Vascular Institute, the team announced on Wednesday. So not sure if he's going to be in a position or a state to be at the game this weekend, but the fact that he's out of the hospital back home can be visited and seen now by more of his teammates, more of the people in that building after all this. Best news of the week. Awesome stuff. And I'm sure a huge mental lift for this Bills team that's been dealing with hell watching their teammate go through worse.
Could you imagine if he walked down that field this weekend? I mean, maybe at this point the best we could hope for is maybe something live on the screen. I don't know. But I mean, you're right. I mean, from what we saw last Monday to where we are now, I mean, what a testament, obviously, to the people, the first responders on the field to him, the people in the hospital, certainly to Damar himself for coming through that and what he's done and what's going to be in the future. We'll wait and see, but my God, what an incredible story.
If you put him out on that field, there is no spread that you could give me that the Bills wouldn't cover in that game. We saw the emotional explosion last week when you had the Nyheim Hines kick return for a touchdown to start the game. But if those guys now get to see and reach out and be around that guy, I think it just takes away so much more of that mental strain when there was so much uncertainty about that and you were just fresh off seeing that. And to see him okay now on the other side, I can't imagine what that's doing for those guys.
God, incredible.
Yeah. I feel bad, like, fantasizing about the football in this instance, but when it comes to the playoffs, I mentioned this on the Sweat. I mean, the Bills were already a great football team. Right. They have an edge when it comes to stories walking into this thing.
There's no doubt about it. So congratulations to Damar. So happy that he gets to be out for this. Whatever his choice is for the game, whatever that is, I'm sure that whole Bills family and his family are just happy to feel a lot more whole right now going into this. Speaking of families, let's get to that. It was announced that 4-time major champion and former world number 1 Naomi Osaka is pregnant, and she's going to miss the entire 2023 season. She tweeted that life's so short, I don't take moments for granted, and every day's a new blessing, and I have so much more to look forward to in the future. For my kid to be able to come and watch one of my matches and tell someone that's my mom. Talked about what she's looking forward to in 2023 with this, but congratulations to her. That's awesome. Obviously, Naomi Osaka's had a career that has been a lot different than the way it started here. Very public and very open about mental health, the things that she's talked about relative to the sport, but very cool that she gets to be a mom right now. And I think in a world post, there have been a lot of other people that have come before, and women who have been pregnant and then come back and been professional athletes, certainly been well documented. But in this sport, I'm sure for Naomi Osaka to have just watched Serena Williams do this exact thing can make her feel pretty good about the prospect of being able to do this and then still come back and be a tennis player on the other side.
Listen, I have no idea where her tennis career is going to go. That's been such a puzzle. But I know I can say as a parent, there is nothing in the world like being a parent. So when you have that kid and the feeling that you have, so congrats for her to that. And I hope it's an incredible experience for her.
I'll take the other side of it. I'm definitely happy for her. Happy for her, the father of her child as well, Corday. He's a popular rapper, young guy, very talented. Excited that they're solidifying their union in this way with the DNA. But for young parents, I know money like kind of can grease the wheels. I don't wish it on anyone. It's so fucking hard. Like,
you don't wish parenthood on anyone?
No, not young parents. Like, I really don't. Like, I don't. Like,
I love how Brandon said,
me, like,
I'm
when
going
our
to take
friends,
the other side of this, the other side of parenting.
Yes, bro.
My God.
Michelle's telling me like our friends are married or are pregnant or expecting like weddings that we've been to, and I'm like, oh man. Like she was like, no, they're excited. I was like, oh, they are? Oh, okay.
Like we are not at that age where like there was a point in time, I think when we were in college especially, or you're like 21, where there is that conversation where you hear someone's pregnant and you're like, was that on purpose? Are we happy about this?
Right.
At our big age now, if you're doing that, you're likely pretty thrilled about it. And you're likely at some point in the process in a place where you can do that, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
I told my wife yesterday, I said, I've always wanted to have children. I'm very glad I have my children with you. That was the plan. But at no point in time did I think this was going to be fun or I was going to enjoy this process. And she was like, so you don't like love, like you didn't, I'm like, oh, you want me to make you sad? Like this shit is terrible. Like it's bad. You guys, like I like being good at my job. Like I was so much better at my job before I had kids. Like not even just the talking part here, but like everything else. Like it's bad.
Oh my God.
It's bad.
All right. Let me just say things I wasn't expecting to hear when I jumped on this pod today.
Brandon,
wow.
Just the lead up of Brandon saying, I'll take the other side on this one.
I was like, the other side of what? Parenting?
I was going to say, how are you about to skip Bayless this pregnancy announcement between two happy people?
Oh my God.
I'm happy for her. I'm happy for him.
But it sounds like you really want to scream, don't do it! Don't do it!
Reconsider. Read some literature on the subject.
Bro.
Oh my
God!
That's
Wow!
More celebrity babies, the more happy everyone's obsessed with the Royals and stuff. Whatever. So
I'm gonna back away from this one slowly, so your wife knows that I had no place or no part in co-signing this conversation, and I'm gonna finish this off with the third. Since we talked a lot about TV today, figured this would be a cool one to end on. Yesterday, Netflix announced and revealed the trailer for its upcoming PGA Tour docuseries called Full Swing, and announced the premiere date of February 15th. It's an 8-episode series that's going to debut. It's going to showcase PGA players going through the season, behind the scenes stuff. It's going to include Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth are both featured in the trailer as well. I think also Rory McIlroy, Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, Scotty Scheffler, Brooks Koepka are all other names that appeared in the trailer, but essentially trying to take the Drive to Survive model that Formula One used with Netflix and do that to another sport in the PGA that we know had a bit of a wild 2022. The Live Golf people showed up. So, Dad, starting with you, is this something, as someone who's consumed Drive to Survive, is this something that interests you?
I'm not sure because I'm trying to think. Drive to Survive, you could see it because it's a dangerous job and only two drivers to a team and then that kind of competition. What's the drama going to be here? Where are we? I'm trying to
live.
I would imagine Live.
Maybe Live. That's going to be one part of it. That's not going to be all 8 episodes. I'm trying to. There's going to be no danger involved. There's like no safety, issues involved. Like when you're watching football and people get hurt or driving where people can get in crashes. And we saw in Drive to Survive in the lower racing thing, the guy that got killed. And so there's none of the worry of that, if anybody get hit by an errant fucking golf ball or something. So I don't know where the drama will come from. That's my only, I'll watch it, but I'm not sure about it.
Yeah, well, because it's interesting because even within Formula One, like I'd say for Drive to Survive, you get some of the action of the race, but even that sort of spliced together, and it's still more about the stress of communication on race day.
Right,
and it's
right,
really
right.
in that show, I always said, obviously, the violence at the center of it, the potential for danger that exists in auto racing in general is a part of that. But then it was the wealth porn too, right? It's the lifestyle stuff. I'm sure that's going to be a sell here. I just wonder, because the other part of Drive to Survive is there is so much internal beef, not even just between drivers in the sport, but drivers on their own teams. Are you going to have that same stuff here, or is it just going to be getting to know? Because we know with a lot of the young golfers, a lot of those guys were really close. A lot of those guys are good friends. So unless you're going to take us on that private jet and all those fun trips that Rory and the young guys would go on together, I'm kind of with you. They have more of an uphill battle than racing, which is inherently more exciting.
Well, also, the opposite of Drive to Survive, people love golf already. Like, I don't know what the ratings were for the last golf event, but you're dealing with a sport and a subject matter that people are already bought into. For example, I just started watching Coach Prime on Amazon Prime, the documentary about Deion Sanders, and I know everything. They kind of jump around like documentaries do, especially television ones, or episodic ones, but I already know everything that happened at Jackson State, but I'm still kind of enthralled in the story. Like, it kind of starts with him in Colorado. So with the golf, I imagine I'm not someone who consumes golf documentaries outside of Tiger Woods, but I imagine people will be interested.
But Brandon, I think that's the point, is they're not doing this for people that already like golf.
Yeah. They want to
the thing with Drive
people.
to Survive was that got new fans, that got American fans into the sport, and I'm sure the PGA is thinking this could be their avenue to someone like you who's not really a fan of golf and say, how can we make you interested?
I agree, because Drive to Survive worked perfectly for me. Someone who wasn't really into Formula One, like Ben, my son-in-law, he loves Formula One. He would get up on Sunday mornings and watch it all the time. And I was like, what, and then who I do, Golic and Smetty with Jess Smetana. She loves Formula One. She has a pod now about Formula One, and that got me more interested. And they were the ones that told me about Drive to Survive, and it got me more and more interested to now know all the characters when I watch the races. Well, I already know all the characters in golf, so I'll just say I'm just wondering what I'm going. Now, it's always good to go behind the scenes in some things, but I'm not sure what we get out of this.
Yeah, I think it's an uphill battle because some of the stuff in there, like you said, you don't have the draw of big, fast, and loud. I will be curious to see if it can flesh out more personality even behind some of these golfers, because we get a fair amount, but I think that's the whole thing, is finding a way to storytell these guys, build up the characters a little bit more, so that now all of a sudden maybe the stuff means more and maybe it means in a different light when it comes to. I'm going to check it out and try it, and we'll see.
Yeah.
Try and give it an opportunity and see what happens. But again, full swing on Netflix, premieres on February 15th. 8 episodes, some of the biggest names in the PGA Tour. We will see how that goes. This has been a very television-filled episode of Golic and Wingo. If you enjoyed it, make sure go Golic and Wingo. Holy shit! How did
Make sure you leave that in there, Brandon.
Yeah,
Make sure you leave that in
man.
there.
How did I pull that one out of my ass?
Do you have a flashback?
I think so. You know what it is? I work.
Like Trey?
I have some of the old Golic and Wingo shirts that I use as workout shirts now, and I did laundry for the first time in a while today, and was folding that up and had it on the brain again immediately after that. That is wild.
Good to know you haven't forgot about the show that you were on for 3 years. Well done.
I can say it still sits in the back of my mind there, as does this podcast, which you should download, subscribe, rate, and review, leave a 5-star rating for, and watch like you would watch a television show on YouTube in the DraftKings YouTube channel underneath the Gojo of Mike Golic Jr. playlist. You can also check out the Golic and Smetty playlist on there. Check them out. They had Ryan Nanny on this week, who is on his quest to appear on as many podcasts as possible. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Golic and Wingo. Oh, money